You know who is 13 going on 30 and looks exactly like adult Jenna Rink is Krista B. Allen, who played little Jenna Rink in 13 going on 30. Except now she's 30 and it's full circle.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's how time works, right?
Time is a construct. Nothing is real.
Unless you listened to last week's episode where we talked about the time cube.
Last week's episode of what?
This podcast, which is called Crime Culture.
Oh, good. You got it right. Oh, I was worried.
We're here. We're in it. We're going.
We're here. We're queer. It's Pride. Get used to it.
Yeah.
Woo! I'm excited. Are
Yeah,
you
we
excited?
in it. I am excited.
Well, I mean, I'm in it.
I don't know if New York is having Pride this year. I don't believe so because I haven't heard anything going on. But next year, you better believe I'm going to be at Pride and just fucking tits out. It's going to be a time.
I think Palm Springs is gonna do Pride because a friend of mine, like, I don't know if you call it captains or whatever. She does a party bike down there,
Fun.
and she was saying, she was like, yeah, Pride's gonna be like crazy this year, and I was like, oh, so they are doing it. But I think LA Pride, I have to ask a friend of mine who's like closer to like the like down where like the Abbey is and everything. But like I need to ask him and be like, hey, by the way, because he told me we both are fully vaccinated now, woohoo. And he was like, when do I get to see you? And I was like, soon, I hope. I'll pretend that I care for like a minute. And he told me that if I did not come visit him, it would be homophobic because it is Pride Month. And so,
yeah, I mean, true.
You got me there.
Yeah.
You got me there. And like, I'm unemployed, so I can't get canceled before I get a job. I need a job to lose in order to get canceled. So hire me. Turning that one around.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why the fuck not? Am I right? But yeah, I think we're.
Are we ready to fucking start here?
I was gonna say, I think we actually are keeping the banter to a minimum this time and getting started.
Look at that. Look at us.
I know. So for those who don't know, this is a Patreon pick.
Is it really?
This is.
Yay!
We did a Patreon pick poll. How many times can I go puh for the ASMR?
Plosives.
What?
My husband taught me that.
What is the fuck?
That's why we have the pop filter. It's too technical
pop
for you
filter
for you to understand. So why don't you just
what the fuck is that supposed to
why
mean?
don't you just talk about your case this week?
We should talk about what the shit you're trying to say.
No, off mic.
You want to talk about homophobic?
Whoa.
Hey, be nice to me. I
I'll
know
think
my
about it.
worth. I hate you so much. So this is a Patreon pick. I think right now we only have Lucian as, and honey, I am going to second guess myself every time I say your name. It's just a given. Like, I'm going to sound really inorganic saying it. It's just going to happen. Just let it happen, baby. Just let it happen.
It's all right. Lucian has way too much power and is
Yes.
really just monopolizing this podcast. So people need to join the Patreon and have a say in what episodes we do.
End this power imbalance.
Although picking good episodes, I will tell you.
I mean, yeah, I am not mad at these choices. Like, truly, I'm not mad at these choices. But yeah, so this one, I wanted to say this is a choice, but I feel like that's going to sound really shady. I walked y'all through Glee a couple weeks back.
Yeah, we did.
I'm probably going to need to walk y'all through this whole thing. Cause
I'm in it. I'm ready.
Like, for example, Haley, you do not watch Drag Race, correct?
I have seen probably half of one season. What channel is it on? Am I that
which
elderly?
channel is it on now, or which channel was it on? Because it's been bopping around.
Yeah, so that might be the main problem because I have 0 TV channels. I have given up that.
I mean, so have I. You just make a burner email and you log into VH1 with a different burner email every time. You don't even need to make the email. Just put an email in.
That's a lot of effort.
No, you just like LOL 69420 at hotmail.com and then make up a fucking password and you've got a 24-hour pass, my dude.
I do the thing where I depression watch the same show over and over again. So that's kind of my jam.
See, my original depression watch was to go, my same friend that I need to visit before Pride is over. So he has a friend who has a sports bar in Silver Lake in LA. And it changed. The premiere days have changed. But at the time, Friday, that there would be a RuPaul's Drag Race, there would be no sports. It would be Drag Race on every single TV in that sports bar. And there would be drag bingo beforehand. Various guests show up. I forget. He's going to kill me. I forget who hosts drag bingo, but she was just on the last season of All Stars, RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars. We'll get into it, babies. We'll get into it. But yes, needless to say, I am very excited for this episode.
Okay, tell me what it's about.
I am living. It is about Venus Extravaganza, which just that fucking
perfect name.
Beautiful name. And she was born on May 22nd, 1965 in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Oh, hey.
Look at you. She was one of 6 kids, 4 brothers named Frank, John Jr., Joseph, and Louis, and 1 sister named Claire. And they were born to Italian and Puerto Rican parents, John and Olga or Ali Pellegatti. So Venus chose her name. She was inspired by the Roman goddess of love, beauty, desire. You know the drill. I'm your Venus. I'm your fire. No.
Razors.
Yes.
Yep.
Razors. And she chose this name basically after she secretly began cross-dressing and performing in drag as, at the time, a boy. And that was at about 13 or 14 before she came out as trans. And just her dream was to have gender confirmation surgery. So she was like, I want to get this done. I want to live my life. And I want to just be the woman that I've always dreamed of being. And that included modeling and being a wife.
Hell yeah.
Like just like something that so many people take for granted.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
So I'm okay. So she said in the documentary Paris is Burning, which I will get into in a little bit, quote, I don't feel that there's anything mannish about me except maybe what I might have between me down there, which is my little personal thing. So I guess that's why I want my sex change, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
So when her parents discovered she was trans again, she was like early teens. She moved out. She left and went to New York because she said she didn't, quote, want to embarrass them.
Oh my
end
God.
Quote. Yes. Well, I mean, think about it. Italian and Puerto Rican parents.
And this was around like what era?
This is, let's see, she was born in 65. We'll round up to 15 years. So it's 1980.
Oh, and that is a scary New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I math. I'm now second guessing myself. It's 85. I did mental math correctly. So it's 1979, but I did mental math and that's what matters.
Still, that time in New York, in certain areas especially, is rough.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're going to pivot a little bit. For those who watch Friends, I know it's chuggy. I know what chuggy means. Somebody at work mistook me for Gen Z today. And I was like, are we fighting? But
stop showing off.
Pivot. So we're going to pivot and talk about something called houses. And it's not what I someday maybe dream of owning once my student debt decides to calm the fuck down. Daddy Biden, help a girl out. But no. So the house system was created in the mid 1970s. So around the time, a little bit before Venus moved out. It was created by Crystal and Lottie LaBieja as a response to, well, first and foremost, the racism directed at drag queens and members of the LGBTQIA plus community that were people of color.
Yeah.
Because it just, all of the major drag establishments were just a sea of white.
Yeah.
And so then also just a world and a country, America, and America that just condemned gender nonconformity. Like, they still do it today, don't get me wrong, but back then it was just so bad.
Yeah, we've made some steps forward, but definitely
there's
not
so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to go. So these all black houses, like the House of La Vieja, or all Latinx houses like the House of Extravaganza, they emulated like famous high fashion houses like Chanel and Dior and Yves Saint Laurent. And the difference was between like from not just these white drag houses, but also from these, or yeah, from the drag houses, but also from the fashion houses, like people of color were not at the forefront. You didn't see black women on runways or black men on runways. People, it was all white all the time, all one body type all the time. So they allowed for these queens of color to just take center stage and like organize their own what were called balls, which were basically like, so we'll get into RuPaul's Drag Race a little bit. There's this part where towards the end of the show, right before like judging, there's a runway challenge, and they're given like a various themes that they're told.
Yeah.
So for example, one theme a couple seasons ago was balls, and so people literally had like pom-pom suits or like they just had like a round ass dress. So shit like that, but it's so glamorous, it's so high fashion, and like it's beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
But so these balls were like that, except they would like compete. The different houses would compete. So they not only were able to like organize these balls to give people of color like the ability to like propel themselves forward as icons in the LGBTQIA plus community.
Yeah.
The houses also served as like a family structure that a lot of these people did not have. There were house mothers and fathers that acted as not only like leaders, but also mentors for their quote unquote children. And they would just provide this welcoming, safe environment that at the time, hardly anybody in this community had. They didn't have like supportive parents. They didn't have like any of that. Like they're like in the documentary, for example, one of the, I think it was actually, I don't remember if it might have been Paris Dupree, who we'll get into. Like her mother was so upset that she was wearing women's clothes that she found a mink coat in her closet, and there was perfume on it, and it was like her signature perfume scent. So she goes, I know it's not some girlfriend that owns this coat, and she burned the coat in the backyard.
Oof.
Yeah. Like shit like that. Like you don't nowadays, like we were just talking about people that we knew who are members of this community, and how some of them are just, we're so happy that their families, that they were born into a family that's so accepting.
Yeah. And a time where they can live their truth and just be who they are without the constant fear. Like, obviously I'm not speaking for any type of community that I'm not a part of, but I have to imagine it's different being a part of this community when you can be out and proud without the constant fear of persecution from every fucking turn.
Right.
Depending on where you live, obviously.
Right. And not even just that. Like, that's not to say also that you are like, there's a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but there's a lot of like, oh, like you should come out, you should be proud, strengthen numbers and whatnot. And that's the whole point of Pride. You can be proud privately.
Yeah.
You can if it is not safe for you to share this part of your identity with other people, whether it's because you live at home and your family may not be as accepting, whether you live with a partner who may not be accepting, whether you live in a place that is just dangerous for people like yourself, there is no shame in coming out. I know that it's seen as this wonderful, empowering thing for so many people, but for a lot of people, it can be extremely dangerous, and there is no shame in that.
It's so personal.
Exactly. It's very personal. And hopefully at some point we'll get to a point where, not that it won't matter, but it'll just, there will be one identity, and it will be none your business.
Perf.
I have a dream, and that is that. But yeah. So in 1983, Venus was invited to join the House of Extravaganza by her drag grandfather, or the house's grandfather, I guess I should say, which is Hector Extravaganza.
Amazing.
And I know. We stand. So she was very quickly, like, she found her people. And she finally was, like, amongst people who encouraged her to be herself and who loved her for who she was. And she was quickly embraced by the members of the house, including its mother, Angie. She became the drag mother and the house mother, and took Venus in and made her basically her, like, protege after Hector died of AIDS in 1985, which is another whole terrible situation altogether. Or I should say AIDS-related complications, as my notes say, but I'm going a little bit off the book. So at this point, Venus got her surname Extravaganza, because basically that's like a traditional sort of thing that, like, you take the name of the house that you are a part of as
that's
your
cool.
Yeah. So, like, for example, on RuPaul's Drag Race, there's a competitor, Kennedy Davenport, and I know Kennedy Davenport sticks out to me just because that's the first season I started watching, was season 7.
It sounds so New England.
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot like
very,
that. Yes,
like,
very
highfalutin.
I believe it's Southern. I believe they're in the South.
Oh, really? Okay.
But no, but then, like, you've got that, but then you've got, like, Alaska Thunderfuck. Like, you've got
incredible.
Yes,
there's no better name.
There's a couple. There's a few, but Miss Congeniality of season 12, which was not this past season, but the one before, was Heidi N Closet, and the whole. Thank you, because I thought it was fucking funny. Every single person that I know that watched it was like, oh God, even RuPaul was like, that name needs to go. I think it's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
But so for example, Kennedy Davenport was a competitor on season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race, and then also season 3 and season 5 of Drag Race All Stars, which is like they take people who did well but did not win in previous seasons and put them against each other. So she is from the house of the Davenports, as the last name would suggest. And she's also, there's a lot of drag siblings, but she is the drag sister of, notably, the late Sahara Davenport, who was a competitor on season 2 of RuPaul's Drag Race. And that's a lot of that happens a lot with this reality series, is that, like, different drag siblings will compete on different seasons and be like,
that's cool.
Yeah, like, so season 13 just now, one of the top 3 was Rosé. Spoiler alert, sorry. It's over. You probably have seen it. Just if you've been muting your Twitter this long, then I don't know what to tell you. Rosé was in the top 3. Rosé's drag sister, who they're in, like, a band together. They're really cool. Check them out. Was Jan, last name Sport. Jan Sport. And Jan was like a triple threat. Jan was fucking amazing. And I believe she actually is going to be on this upcoming season of All Stars as well, because she's fucking incredible. But so, like, they weren't on the same season together. I think they actually went out for the same season, but Jan got season 12 and Rosé got season 13. And yeah, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of, like, family.
Jan Sport, I need a Lisa Frank queen.
No, you don't.
I think
No, you
her outfits would be
I see. All right. Look into Evie Oddly.
Okay.
YVIE and then like Oddly. And she's fucking weird. I'm not gonna lie to you, but like
She might be my inspiration.
she's from Denver, so she really might be your inspiration.
Bless her.
But yeah, so bottom line, Venus lost her biological family because of who she was as a human being and ended up finding a family that she was able to choose herself.
Chosen family,
Because
best family.
chosen family, best family. I say it all the time. Hi, I love you.
Yeah.
So she was able to find these people who accepted her for like who she was and gave her the freedom to live her life authentically and as she wanted, no strings attached, no judgment, and just love.
Yeah.
And according to Venus, Hector was actually the first gay man that she had ever met, which that sort of kinship of finding somebody like, oh, hey, like you get it. You understand what it's like.
Yeah.
And for her 15th birthday, he bought her a cake and threw her a party in Greenwich Village.
Aw.
I
That
know,
must
right?
have been a slamming ass party.
Girl, Greenwich Village in the 80s. Are you fucking kidding me? I sound like those kids that are like, oh, I was born in the wrong time. I wish I was born when Paris Hilton and Britney Spears wore low-rise jeans.
Oh, God.
If you're listening to this and you are one of those kids, I love you so much, but you have no idea how badly you do not want low-rise jeans to make a comeback. Trust me.
No, it's a rough time.
We lived it. We don't want it. Oh God, I feel so old. So Venus helped the extravaganzas rise to prominence within the ballrooms, and just they were and continue to be like one of the top houses and
Hell yeah.
longest standing houses, the House of Extravaganza. And they also became known as, like at this time, the House of Impossible Beauties. There's even a book of the
Wow.
same title written about them, right?
That's cool.
She is that she like if you watch Paris is Burning, she's stunning. But so that will get us to that's a good segue. So in the 80s, filmmaker Jenny Livingston began shooting the revolutionary documentary Paris is Burning. One source told me that she shot it for 7 years, meaning that it came out in 1990. Spoiler alert. Another source told me she started filming it in 1988, and therefore there's 7 years is not between 1988 and 1990. I'm bad at math. I'm not that bad at math. So I'm not quite positive when she started
Okay.
shooting this based on my sources being so combative. But either way, the premise it's about New York City's ballroom scene in the late 80s, and Venus was one of the people Livingston chose to interview for the film to profile. She also tapped Willie Ninja, who nobody seems to know the name of, but you know the Vogue, like the dance move?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Willie Ninja.
Whoa.
Like the Vogue that we know today that we all do is fucking Willie Ninja did that.
Whoa.
That yeah. And then Paris Dupree, I mentioned before. So she was the mother of the House of Dupree, and Paris is Burning is the name of the annual ball that the House of Dupree would host.
That's really cool. I like all these names.
I know they're
so
fucking
fancy.
brilliant names. They're so great. And so then there's Pepper LaBieja from, the House of LaBieja, and then Dr. Sol Williams Penn Davis.
Okay.
Or Saul, it might be Saul. I fucked that up, I think. But he's also fucking incredible because not only is he a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, he's a vet. He was part of these ballrooms, but then also like he's currently, well, I think it's over now. I think they've stopped filming. There's a series that I'll get to that he serves as a consultant on. For being like, this is how things were back during this time. And it's just, he's fucking incredible. But so, yeah. So in the ballroom, like contestants who, again, they're poor. They're mostly Black and Latinx. Gay men, trans women, what have you. They would dress up and compete for trophies in themed categories like high fashion evening wear with like gorgeous gowns and fur coats. or executive realness, which would be like power suits and briefcases, and then like schoolgirl and schoolboy realness, where they'd dress up in like sweaters and uniforms and backpacks and books, but like elevated, but like, but make it fashion. So the underlying point of these categories wasn't even necessarily but make it fashion. It was just that these marginalized and mistreated groups of people were able to just, for that one moment on the runway, they were able to live out life opportunities and events that they never had been able to experience and that would never truly be available to them because of how horribly they were treated by society, by American society. And like, even with poverty, like they weren't just poor, like they were kept down to stay poor. So like, for example, Pepper LaVieja said in the documentary, quote, "I'd always see the way that rich people live and I feel it more. It would slap me in the face. I'd say, I have to have that. I never felt comfortable being poor or even middle class doesn't suit me. Seeing the riches, seeing the way people on Dynasty lived, these huge houses. Why is it that they can have it and I didn't? I always felt cheated," end quote. And for those who don't know, or for those who think that the current one on TV is the original, Dynasty is a like soap opera-esque like TV show about rich white people in America. And it's a little less white now. I was gonna say, it's a little less white now in the reboot, but it's still relatively, it's pretty fucking white. But yeah, so this was like a common feeling. It resonated amongst all of these participants in the ballrooms. Even Venus, like she said in her interview, quote, "I would like to be a spoiled, rich white girl. They get what they want whenever they want it, and they don't have to really struggle with finances and nice things, nice clothes, and they don't have to have that as a problem," end quote.
Yeah.
Fucking yes, exactly. So the goal of this documentary was to not only criticize American culture, but also to shed a light on the darker realities of homophobia and transphobia and racism, and the AIDS epidemic and institutionalized poverty, and just do it all through this glamorous lens of the ballroom, and do so without treating these human beings as circus sideshows or points of interest for like the white secular heteronormative cisgendered world audience, because that's, up until this point, that's how, and quite honestly beyond this point, that's how this community has been treated. So at the beginning of the documentary, Pepper LaVieja says, quote, "I remember my dad saying, you have 3 strikes against you in this world. You're black and you're male and you're gay. You're going to have a hard fucking time. He said, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to be stronger than you've ever imagined," end quote. And that basically sums up the premise of this documentary. It shows the documentary shows not just this quote, but it, like, just how the concept of like intersectionality, which is, everybody hears it nowadays, but back then it, like, intersectionality wasn't seen as a major point. But how it works in tandem with like things like race and gender and sexuality and gender identity and like all kinds of other factors that are spun around and used to discriminate other people and keep them down. So we don't know a lot about Venus other than what's in this documentary. I'll spoil it. She lived a very short life, and just really the only snapshots we get of her are in this, because she had so much going for her. She had such a big future, and we never got to see it, and she never got to see it. But we do know, because of this documentary and the people who have kept her spirit and her story alive, I'm about to lay out everything that I was able to find.
All right.
So she worked as a sex worker, for one thing. And this was partially to save up money for her gender reassignment surgery, though at the time of filming the documentary, she was like, I've quit. I'm not doing it anymore. But when I did, it was like this.
Okay.
And she would say, quote, I want my sex change to make myself feel complete, end quote. So in addition to sharing her life as a trans woman, which is brave enough in and of itself, she also was just openly like just willing to discuss her life as a sex worker, which she referred to as hustling, and called attention to the fact that many trans people needed, and quite honestly, they still need to today, to perform sex work in order to survive. And both viewers of the documentary and then also just people who knew Venus, just they came to love her. She charms you and is, like I said before, like she's beautiful, but not just like she's beautiful inside and out, and she's so, I hate to sound like that girl, but she's so real. She's so ambitious and funny, and she's just got such raw, sheer talent.
Yeah.
That's just she shines. And almost as if a prediction for what was to come, which I'm about to tell you. At one point in the documentary, Dorian Corey, who is just a drag legend, says, quote, when they can walk out of the ballroom into the sunlight and onto the subway and get home and still have their clothes and no blood running off their bodies, those are the femme realness queens, end quote. So in the documentary, the last time we see Venus is she's laughing, she's smoking a cigarette and leaning against a boombox and telling the camera, I'm hungry, but not hungry for food. She's hungry for like her life and for her future, and like to become that model and that wife and just everything that she knows she can achieve if she can just get a fucking break.
Yeah.
So on Christmas Day, 1988, while filming of Paris is Burning was still underway, Venus's body was found stuffed under a hotel room bed at the Duchess Hotel in New York City. She was 23 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The medical examiner estimated she had been murdered by strangulation, and she had died 4 days prior to her discovery.
No.
Yes. People had noticed that she had gone missing, but
it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, I was going to say, even if, I don't know whether or not they tried to find her, but even if they tried,
I'm sure within their
they would have had more luck
community.
themselves. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They would have had more luck themselves. Because Venus was still estranged from her parents at the time of her death, her house mother, Angie Extravaganza, went and identified her body and basically signed the necessary papers to have her cremated and everything.
Wow.
And she also was given the difficult tasks of not only breaking the news to Venus's biological family, but also arranging the funeral service.
Yeah.
Which I
My
can't
God.
even imagine.
Yeah.
And because she did see her as like a daughter.
Yeah.
And she was saying in the documentary basically like not, this isn't a direct quote, but basically it was just like she was the future. She was the main daughter that was going to come out of this and make it like huge. There's no time left for me. I'm too old. I'm not at a point where I can be like, well, maybe I can still like become famous and become this. Now it's just like, maybe I can make a small impact. She goes, she was gonna like
She was
do
going to be
it.
a big name. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so Angie believed that, or theorized, I should say, that Venus was killed by a client after he discovered she was trans, like during performing sex work. And again, although Venus allegedly was no longer in the sex work industry, it's not that far off in terms of a theory. In the documentary, Venus herself talked about how some clients would become absolutely fucking blind with rage when they would find out that she was trans in the middle of like a sexual encounter.
Yeah.
she said, quote, "Some people think we're sick and crazy. Some people think we're the most gorgeous, special things on earth," end quote.
Yeah.
In one particular incident, Venus talked about how she was almost attacked by a John upon his discovery that she was trans. And she actually had to jump out the window to escape.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She did note that, I will say, a lot of her clients, she said, were very nice, very friendly, and some would even give her gifts. Like she was enigmatic.
Yeah.
It was tough not to love her. And unfortunately, because not enough attention is given to violence against sex workers and also to members of the trans community, not to mention now you're putting them both together, the police didn't really do much by way of trying to solve Venus's murder. And while it's still considered an active investigation, that means that a lot of these details can't be publicized, which is, again, part of the reason why there's not too much known about this case.
Yeah.
And honestly, on top of that, though, because there was such, I don't want to say apathy, but no, fuck it, I'll say it. Say apathy. The details surrounding this case, honestly, it's probably too late now to even get much information.
I don't know. They're solving cold cases all over the place.
True.
I wouldn't say anything is too old to solve.
True. I wouldn't say it's too old to solve. I'm thinking, I guess, more in terms of like DNA and forensics and everything. Like they just.
Well, they didn't care at the time, so they probably didn't collect much.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Theorizing,
so it'll be a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
But somebody out there definitely knows something. This wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
This was almost 40 years ago? That's not that long ago. Almost 40 years ago. Haley, we're almost 40.
What?
I mean,
not yet.
Indirectly, but almost. You're closer than I am.
Gee, thanks.
But yeah. So it's just it's so daunting to like think about just the possibility of this case being solved. But in terms of law enforcement not giving attention to Venus's murder, the same can also be said of Livingston and her documentary, Paris is Burning.
Mm-hmm.
After following Venus around for however long it was, whether it was a year, 7 years, a few months, depending on who you ask. The same can also be said of Livingston, because she just made everybody fall in love with Venus and then kind of just glosses over her murder, mentions a possible cause of and motive, and like that's it.
Yeah.
There's not much. They don't really focus that much on it. The end of the movie shows Angie's reaction as she learns of Venus's murder, or she's learned of it at this point. They don't get the like live.
Yeah. That would be too much.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. But Angie said, quote, "I always said to her, Venus, you take too many chances. You're too wild with people in the streets. Something is going to happen to you. But that was Venus. She always took a chance. She always went into a stranger's car. She always did what she wanted to get what she wanted," end quote. And Angie said that she had always been worried that, quote, something was going to happen to her, end quote, because she was just a free spirit.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing too. That's really all that's touched on about Venus's murder, other than including Angie's theory. And I feel like Livingston could have done something to try to call more attention to this case.
Probably, yeah.
But Venus is buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in North Arlington, New Jersey. Her dead name is written on her grave.
Oh.
And her murderer has still never been caught, identified, apprehended. None of it.
Yeah.
The House of Extravaganza remains active in the ball circuit and in nightlife and LGBTQIA plus activism. It remains one of the longest standing houses in New York City.
It's got that great name.
It's got that great name. And you can't even
beat
see. You can't see. Everybody else can see because of the title, but it's spelled extravaganza XTRA.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that
yeah.
in our outline. It's so great.
Woo! I love it. But yeah, so Paris is Burning premiered on September 1990. Whoopsies. In Toronto, Canada, and grossed $3.7 million at the box office, which is nearly $7.8 million today, which not only is really good for a documentary at that time, but also I think the budget was something like $3,000, $3,500. Yeah.
Damn.
It like stayed in the box office for something like 6 months, which again is not really heard of.
Yeah.
With documentaries like this. And it launched Livingston's career as a filmmaker, in addition to bringing this topic and the experiences of LGBTQIA plus people and POC members of that community, and like impoverished members of that community and members of that community who suffered from AIDS, all of that to the forefront of public discussion. And it ended up winning the 1991 Sundance Film Festival Grand Jury Prize and was included in the film archive at the Library